FS Elite at FlightSimExpo 2024 is proudly brought to you by SimBit World's A Pilot's Life Chapter 2. Check it out now on SimMarket and also on Contrail. Please, without further ado, welcome Tim to the stage from Thrustmaster.
Hey, Colin.
Good to see you.
How you doing?
Very well. How are you?
Good, good.
It's been a year.
It has been a year. A hell of a year. Yeah, we're back here at FlightSimExpo. It's been a long year in between, and yeah, the size and the scope of FlightSimExpo just keeps growing and growing and growing.
Because you have been a huge part of FlightSimExpo for many years now. How are you finding this year so far, being back in Vegas as well?
Yeah, so we've been supporting FlightSimExpo since the very beginning. The Vegas show, which was the inaugural year, was actually the only year that we weren't here as a booth ourselves. So this is our first time in Vegas, but our 6th time at FlightSimExpo and our 7th time supporting or sponsoring FlightSimExpo. It's the show of the year where we always announce or launch a new product for the first time, because there's no other event like it in terms of getting the entire flight sim community into the same room at the same time with the energy that they bring to this community.
Okay, so you've brought it upon yourself right now to say announcing new products or bringing something new to the show this year. Yep. So what are you bringing to the show this year for people to try out?
So for the first time this year, as you know, we split our attentions, let's say, between civilian and combat. This is a combat year for us. About a month or so ago, the Ava base, which is our first, or sort of the next stage in our all-metal pro flight stick ecosystem, was launched or announced to the world. It's been available now for about a month or so, and this is the first chance for most of these people to be able to get their hands on it and to be able to talk to us about it, because it is such a it's developed in order for users to be able to tinker with it. Mm-hmm. We wanted to really be able to focus on it at a show like this, where people can get their hands on it, tear it apart, put it back together, and see how easy all of that is.
And is that exactly what you're demonstrating out
That's
there today?
Exactly what we're demonstrating, yeah. We have it set up in a couple of our combat stations so that people can feel what it's like on the looser and tighter configurations. I'll explain what that means in a second. But also we have it set up for people to be able to take it apart and customize it. The biggest benefit of this new product for flight simmers is the ability to completely customize it in a very short amount of time. So you can change the tension of the springs, you can change the flight path of the cams and of the masks on top, to be able to control essentially everything, to be able to personalize it, to be able to make sure that you are using it the way that you want to use it, whether that means to make it as authentic as possible to the plane that you're flying and the game that you're playing, or whether it means just a personal preference and the personal feeling for yourself. You can be able to do that. The cool thing about this, compared to some of the other customizable bases on the market, is that you can do it in a very small amount of time. Like I said, between games, between sessions, between planes, to be able to just take the top off, tinker with it a little bit, put it back together, and you have an all new feeling in your hand.
And you say this is very much a military kind of...
So currently, because our pro flight stick ecosystem is very much focused on the military, the Ava base is backwards compatible with everything we've ever launched in that same space. So everything that was ever compatible with the Warthog or the Cougar base is now compatible with the Ava. So that means on day one that we have a full military or combat ecosystem. Of course, the expectation with this being the next stage of our pro flight stick ecosystem is that we can only go up from here, we can only grow from here. So that's why I say it's focused on combat today, but the future, we'll see what happens next.
Interesting. Yeah. You mentioned as well about the tension.
Yes.
As well, you're going to come back to that.
Yeah, so the tension, basically in order to, one of the questions we get the most frequently about all of our products in our lineup is, how can I make it more tense or more loose? How can I add tension? How can I reduce tension? And how can I make it the hardcore flight simmers want as much tension as possible, right? It was really the stage towards getting a lot more feeling of force as you're pulling back on a yoke, as you're pulling back on a stick, as you're banking, as you're making these intense movements. And so we've given people the ability to, in multiple different ways, by adjusting dampers, adjusting springs, both the actual physical springs being replaced with tighter and tighter springs, also the sort of the travel distance of the springs, and be able to make all of those changes within 2-3 minutes or so of just a little bit of tightening, a little bit of screwing, and then just put it right back on and be able to just get back into the next jet and have a totally different flying experience.
Wow.
So that's what I meant by the tension. It really is the piece of feedback that we get, or the question that we get the most about all of our products. And so now we've listened to the community and be able to launch this flight stick base that allows people to make all of those changes for their own personal preference.
Amazing, sounds awesome.
FS Elite at FlightSimExpo 2024 is proudly brought to you by AnyBuilds. Check out their A300 right now from Microsoft Flight Simulator.
So before we had this interview and before we came to FlightSimExpo, we asked the community for any questions directed to Thrustmaster.
Sure.
And one of them was a bit more about Xbox compatibility for some of your hardware, including the Ava base as well. So anything you can tell us about that?
So Ava base right now is only available for PC. Because it's, like I said, for the pro flight simmer, in combat, but also potentially in civilian or in space in the future. We see those people who are investing a lot of money and a lot of their time in flight sim, we see them playing on PC. So currently the Ava base is not available on Xbox or any console, same as the Warthog, same as many of our high-end flight sticks. But the majority of our flight sim line is compatible with Xbox. So that means all of our civilian stuff, so the Boeing yoke, the TCA Captain Pack, and all of our Airbus licensed SKUs for the civilian products, all of our entry level. That's sort of like everybody out here started with a Thrustmaster, so that's usually people who are playing on consoles, people who are sort of entering into flight sim for the first time. All of our entry level stuff, all of our mid-range stuff is compatible, and all of our high-end stuff in the civilian flight space right now, but our combat stuff and the Ava base currently is a PC-only exclusive SKU.
Okay, that's very interesting. I mean, throughout the entire convention, we've had conversations about taking people who kind of start with the Xbox model and maybe then progresses their way up through.
Absolutely. That's what we see as well. That very much echoes what we hear from the community at an event like this, but also what we see with our analytics and our specs.
Amazing, awesome. So you also mentioned some of your previous products as well, so the yoke and the Airbus stuff as well. Is there anything you can tell us a little bit maybe about what future holds for some of those products? Because some of them are getting a little bit older in terms of, they've been out a little while.
Yeah, the Ava base is replacing the Warthog, which was on the market for 15 years, but it was a leader on the market for 15 years as well. So there really wasn't, I mean, you could argue that there was always a reason to replace it, but there really wasn't necessarily a reason to upgrade it. But we see a huge future. I've seen sort of the internal roadmap that we have, and we have a large future ahead of us in that pro ecosystem space. And so that's why we've chosen this year to be able to announce that. And with that base that now has all that customizability, all those different settings that can be applied to different game types and different plane types, we see a lot of the future in that space. We do have some products that have been on the market for a long time, and they are the best sellers year after year after year after year in the industry. Like I said, not everyone, but a lot of people start with a Thrustmaster, and there's a reason for that. So we know that we have a place in the market, and there are people who are limited on budget, limited on experience, limited on how long they've been in flight sim, and they get into flight sim on a Thrustmaster, and our job, of course, is to keep them within our ecosystem instead of losing them to our competition. So we're developing and growing and growing and growing our library of products and growing the expertise of our products up at that pro level. Seeing a lot more stuff in all metal, the TPR pedals, the Boeing yoke. We have more partnerships and licenses than any of the other products any of the brands on the market, and we're super proud of who we serve and how we serve them, and more importantly, how we're going to be able to keep growing with those flight simmers over their career in flight sim.
Yeah. So one thing I have always noticed about Thrustmaster in particular is your input and your dedication to the esports community. So not necessarily flight sim related, but esports in like trucks and racing and all that kind of stuff.
For sure. And gamepad and I mean everything. We have a lot of connection to esports and pro gaming.
So I wanted to, so walking around here today, we've got the eStore stuff as well. They've got this amazing setup with a truck, and they've got some commentators, and like there's a lot of competition stuff. And in fact, going to the other booths as well, there's a lot of landing challenge things going on, and just opportunities for people to compete. Do you think that something similar to that esports category could ever come into flight simulation in some way, and would Thrustmaster be at the front of that to try and push it?
I think so. I mean, we definitely have a lot of experience in esports, in competitive or professional gaming, for sure, especially on our sim racing side of things and on our gamepad side of things. We also have a lot of experience in competitive or sponsoring competitive and even hosting competitive or more sort of like the show, like the production behind competitive sport, competitive gaming in the flight sim market. For many years, we sponsored the DCS World Events dogfighting competition. As well, we put on our own air shows. We've been big sponsors of formation flying teams for years and years and years. I think it makes a lot more sense in the combat space to have true competition in esports, and it's already out there in very niche spaces, and we support and promote a lot of that stuff. The big question is, and I can turn the question back to you, how can civilian flight simming be competitive? How can it be esports related or esports adjacent? And that's very much for the software developers to do, but we're always out there supporting what we see as the entertainment and the gaming and the competition side of all of the games that our peripherals support, and we'd love to be able to do the same thing with Flight Sim. And I think that Flight Sim 2024 is really very much going to start taking paths, start down the path of that, because there's going to be so much more challenges and competition and things like that hopefully can extend into the multiplayer space as well.
100%. And I always, you threw the question back to me about how I think commercial flight simulation could become an esport, but then I think about farm sim and how that has become its own
crazy,
esport in itself. And
it's crazy. I mean, often these things come from the community. Then the developers see what the community is already doing within their game, and then it's up to them to really amplify it and make it official. Hay bales, like stacking hay bales in farm sim. That's basically career mode in flight sim, but on the ground.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's a lot of space to be able to grow into that esports, and we love watching the community innovate in that space. We love watching the developers innovate in that space, and we love supporting both of those parties wherever we can.
Absolutely. So I want to just bring it back to the hardware for my final question.
Sure.
Something that I think we have started to see a bit more of a rise in is force feedback.
Oh, it's huge. Yeah.
So currently, correct me if I'm wrong, but not any Thrustmaster stuff provides
Thrustmaster flight sim stuff. No.
Flight sim stuff.
Yeah.
So you've obviously got the experience in other realms.
On the racing side, yeah, for sure.
Any chance you could bring any of that over to the flight sim side?
There's definitely a chance. I mean, we have the expertise in force feedback. There's no question about it. We have the expertise, 35 years of developing Thrustmaster hardware on the flight sim side, and about 30 years on the sim racing side. And we have very much innovated year after year after year after year in that force feedback space. And you're going to see even more innovation in that space this year. Translating what we do in sim racing into flight sim is something that is definitely up there, and no question we were beat this year in seeing some of the other guys get it out there first. We're very confident in the future, the roadmap of what Thrustmaster is going to be releasing next, and we're very confident that with our 30 years of developing force feedback peripherals, that we're going to smoke the market when we're good and ready for it.
Awesome. I mean, I'm going to leave it at that. I mean, that's I think what everyone's super excited for.
For sure.
Obviously, Ava base this year. Next year, hopefully, we're going to maybe see something again from you guys as well.
You can count on it.
Awesome. Tim, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Cal.
It's been an absolute pleasure. And for everyone watching back online at home, if you have any further questions, do leave them in the comment sections and we can always forward them on. And we look forward to any more content from FlightSimExpo 2024.
See ya.